Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita, and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru, India. The session will run over the next 60 minutes, including Q&A. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Reactor YouTube channel. I will share the link to our YouTube channel in the chat section soon. Before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. Also, please keep your mics muted during the session. I would now like to welcome Jigar, our speaker for today's session. Jigar is a partner and senior solution architect with TechScalable and has 16 plus years of experience. He has trained more than 25,000 plus IT professionals across the globe. He is also a Microsoft certified trainer. But for now, I will hand over to Jigar to begin the session. Over to you.
Hey, thanks, Rashmita. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. And welcome you all to the today's session on create data-driven website by using Django and PostgreSQL. So, without wasting time, let's get started. I'll share my screen, and meanwhile, I'll stop my video so that we can focus on our presentation part of it. We will discuss regarding what are the things we are planning to cover up today, and then we can get started. Yeah, so let's get started. Okay, I hope you guys are able to see my screen. So, what we are planning to discuss in this particular today's section is that the open source technology stack, right? Usually, when we build any solutions or when we develop any particular application stack, so we get familiar with variety of programming language, which is majorly focused on .NET, C Sharp, Java, right? So these are some quite popular languages. People were using it in terms of developing these solutions. But slowly and gradually, the other programming language in terms of developing web applications and solutions getting more traction, right? And they are quite interactive, secure, and built on top of the open source technology. So we can have a kind of overall solution to be developed with the application, and the format of the application could be anything, right? You may go ahead with e-commerce web application. I mean, starting from simple static web app goes up to dynamic applications where you need certain kind of data mapping with your particular backend services, and you can build on top of your particular environment. Now here we will be talking about a couple of elements. So we'll be going through with Django and as well as PostgreSQL. So these are the two particular open source component what we are planning to talk about, that what offerings via these two component, and we will talk about the architectural part of it, that if I'm planning to build any solutions on top of the Python and Django, and majorly going ahead with a database driven the open source component as in PostgreSQL. So what kind of approach we can take care of it, right? Uh, to build with this particular application, we need couple of tools to work on it, right? So we need Visual Studio Code. So we'll be using Visual Studio Code to work as an open source IDE to develop your particular application locally. And on top of that, it will also offer some variety of features to build and publish your deployment activity as well, right? So we will be using Azure account or Azure subscription. So if you guys are also planning to go ahead and work with this, then you also need Azure subscription in place, the GitHub in terms of your source control, And the most important factor is your Microsoft Learn account, right? So Microsoft Learn, where you will get a lot of insight regarding the content which is supposed to be made available under this particular entire learning path. So people who are planning to get started and all learning your particular stuff, then here is the option. So, if I'm planning to get started with my data-driven website or applications using Python framework, Django, and as well as the PostgreSQL as a database, so here I can, I mean, I'm sure that I can encourage you guys that this is basically a way to go. This is like exclusive learning path. People who all are willing to get into getting started. I mean, it's more about like getting started to take you to at least intermediate level of developing applications where you can build and host your particular entire application stack on Django and as well as the database driven solutions with PostgreSQL. So here you will be going through in a step by step way. It offers getting started from learning Django, starting from Hello World. You will get familiar with a variety of development models, which is something offered by Django, and definitely the component of each and every small component of the particular Django framework, so that it will be helpful in terms of developing your web app, right? So, most important factor is that to get familiar with to get familiar with all the particular component of framework. And last but not least, I mean, during this entire journey, it's not that it is just about learning a framework or learning just the small particular utility kind of thing. It will be a kind it will be an end-to-end learning where you can say starting from hello world to goes up to application deployment with the help of the overall framework. So I strongly recommend all of you guys that whoever is like planning to go ahead and build your applications with open source technology tech, then this stacks, then this is the best way to go for it, right? So to first of all begin with, let's talk about the framework related a little bit, and we will be talking about what all the readiness you need for your particular applications. Okay, so here, if I wanted to consider that, I mean, right now, if you see, currently my application deployment is in progress. So you need Visual Studio Code, right, which will helpful to you in terms of creating your particular local projects. You need Python framework to be installed on your local machine. You need a particular environment where you can locally also test and build your application. So here I have just kept sample page kind of ready where we can have that simple web app is like up and running right now. Of course, I mean, my server is like disabled, so the other deployment is going on, but it is just the simple application where you can have some particular environment is up and running, and at least you can dev test your particular application locally, and then you can publish it into your overall environment of Azure, combining the multiple component, right? You will be getting your particular database hosted, you will be getting your particular application hosted, and there are some particular architectural component of the application that you may need your environment, you may need your Python pages or application script which will help you to deploy and host your particular services on top of it. So ultimate goal over here is that it will be a kind of full-fledged development which you gonna follow behind the scene. You will have a particular applications to be up and running, and these applications are going to be like made available in terms of up and running your local solutions the way it is expected, right? Also, If you are using this first time, then definitely you need certain extensions to be configured with your Visual Studio Code, okay, before getting started with your projects and all. So in such case, a couple of extensions you need. Of course, you need Python, you need Azure services. So here, in terms of Visual Studio Code Marketplace, you will be looking for first of all Azure tools. Okay, so I can say that Azure tools like one-stop extension where you will be able to see a couple of extensions listed out inside that, right? So you don't need to install them one by one individually, because they are like they are bundled under one section, and then you can just simply configure this particular bundle, right? So you will be getting all of them. Majorly what we need is that Azure App Services. This is one of the core extension which we are looking at it, because end of the day, our applications are going to be deployed inside the Azure App Services. So we need these Azure App Service extension, and at the same time we need Azure databases. Now, you don't need to go and separately install each and every single database related services over here, right? Because Azure offers variety of database services. It offers Azure SQL, Cosmos DB, PostgreSQL, MySQL, right? So there are variety of particular database services are available. So if you are planning to work with any one of the database technology stack, and specifically from open source point of view, then you need these particular extension to be mapped, and with this particular extension you will be start working with your particular database as a service. So ultimate goal over here is that you just need to plan the extension well in advance. Of course, you may need GitHub and other stuff also to be configured, because end of the day you will be importing certain repositories and all that stuff on your local machine, so that you will get some particular ready to use projects as well. So once you have those extension in place, or Python and other components added and installed, then you will see some particular icons keep on adding in your particular extension list. And these icons are basically allowing you to build your solution. You can hold your host your environment and all that stuff. So right now, as you see, my web app is under deployment section. So of course, the Visual Studio Code allows you to connect with your Azure subscriptions and other services, and then you can get started, set up the environment. So so on the database as well. So I'll come back and explain this, what is expected, what database we are planning to create, and how this particular activity gonna be work with the help of this, right? So it will be a kind of standard approach where you can have a base environment to be created, where you can build and host your particular customized application to be customized application on top of it, right? So first of all, let's get familiar with the architecture side of it. And of course, you guys will get the link, learning link of this particular entire step-by-step learning path of Django, and as well as PostgreSQL application development learning path. So you will get this particular URL in a while in your particular chat window as well. So that will lead you to further development and further process to work with this particular services, right? So first of all, to begin with, let me explain you that what all the elements we are planning to like cover up in this entire application development, and how the different components are like available to work with your particular application. Okay. So to begin with that, let's get into diagram view and some drawing. So first of all, we will be starting with a couple of components. If I wanted to simplify the learning experience, then I can say that it will be starting with your particular framework, where you can decide that using that specific framework, you will be end up developing your particular application. So this could be your dev environment along with Django, right? So there you can just go ahead and build and set up your particular environment on top of the application development environment. The second component is basically the Azure. So in terms of Azure, what we are looking at it that so from the Azure point of view, we will get the services, right? Because end of the day, this entire deployment is going to happen in your particular cloud services. So we are planning to cover up the services in terms of you can say Azure Web App, and you will be having a particular database services on top of it, right? So you can say you will have the Azure App Services, and you will be having the PostgreSQL database. So here the expectation in terms of working with this particular component, what all the elements, what all the part we are going to cover up in this overall development, right? So first of all, I'll explain that what all the elements we need in terms of Django. So at least I'll give you some little bit background of it, what is available, and then we will talk about this each component separately, that what all the things you may require in terms of Azure App Service Plan, PostgreSQL, and then deploy this particular application, right? So here I can say from the Django perspective, you will be setting up your framework. So it will allow you to create solutions, or you can say DB driven applications, or kind of approach what you want to take it. So you can develop the solutions with ML based. You can develop the solutions from the e-commerce platform, where are a variety of particular e-commerce platforms are like going ahead with certain kind of component. If you are looking for any analysis like database analysis, if you are expecting, then you can go ahead, or any CMS driven solutions if you are expecting, then the Django is like one of the component which you can utilize, or framework you can utilize, which will helpful to you in terms of building the overall solution. So I can say Django is like your full stack development framework. You will get kind of potential infrastructure, or maybe you can say e-commerce or ML or DB driven solutions out of the box. And at the end, you may have enterprise grade solutions to be built and deploy on top of it, right? Now, first important criteria is that what are the elements you are planning to cover up, because usually this is more about framework. What happens when this entire application goes in cloud, how this particular overall environment looks like and works effectively into the solution, right? So in terms of building or deploying your particular solutions, we can consider that we may have a deployment strategy to be identified, where you can consider that you may end up having your Azure regions, right? You can decide that under which Azure region you're planning to build and host this particular application. So from the region perspective, we always prefer that the application may get deployed to close to the customer, right? So that your availability and other elements will be taken care into the system. Now, the architecture point of view, you may consider that being a developer, you will be using a particular development toolchain, your VS Code, right? You may have a particular Azure DevOps, where or GitHub, any particular source control which you can utilize in terms of pushing your particular application code. So usually from the development perspective, you may have your particular development branches and your development pipeline, which may connects with your web apps and all, right? So from the development perspective, you will be pushing your application code into your CI/CD, right? And internally, you will be end up creating your services, right? So here we are planning to go ahead with application service, the Azure Web App. So you will be deploying your particular applications with Azure Web App as a service. So ultimately, this service is available as in PaaS component. So in case like fully managed platform where if it is on premise, then you must have seen that a lot of configurations, deployment, installations, and other stuff you have to take care of it. Now that is sometimes we feel that okay, I mean it is time consuming and a lot of unnecessary steps we need to keep following. So here, if I'm considering the web app as a service, then Azure point of view, you will get certain kind of fully managed platform, and you will be just like building and deploying your particular services on top of it. So here, Azure Web App gonna offer you a particular app service plan, right? So the purpose of app service plan is to manage your application with some predefined pricing tier. So you will be creating web app with appropriate app service plan, right? And under this particular app service plan, there will be a particular a different pricing tier associated with it. So you will get free, shared, basic, you can say standard, and premium one. So any one of the particular pricing tier based app service plan you can configure, and on top of that you can have your particular the Django app to be deployed with the help of this any of these particular either any DevOps tool chain. We can go ahead with Azure DevOps or GitHub. You can have your desired source control and you can deploy your particular application on top of it. Now, the advantage is that definitely, I mean, you have a lot of control on top of installations and configurations of your tool chain, right? So as I said that if I'm planning to go ahead with my VS Code, then inside my Visual Studio Code, I'll be having my configuration tool chain and other options will be available. So it will be helpful in terms of planning and deploying my environment into the Azure, right? So you have some variety of activity to be performed and expected, like say for example I wanted to browse my site, deploy my web app, or SSH using my particular environment. So you can have all that potential features available which you can utilize and you can connect with your particular services the way it is expected. So ultimate goal over here is that from the development perspective, the app service offers some operation and management toolchain. I'll show you from Azure portal as well. That let's say right now I'm performing some connectivity and operational activity from local machine. The same thing I can do it with Azure management tool as well. Now, once you have web app in place, the deployment is something you need a particular backend cluster for your particular database environment as well, right? Now, the cluster point of view, you will be end up creating a particular fully managed PostgreSQL database as a service, right? So, in general, right now I can say uh, you may have your particular DB environment, so you will be provisioning your particular database services on top of it, and along with that particular database services you will be having fully managed platform to be made available. So with your database as well, you have a particular pass offering. So if in case whatever the high availability related environment I'm expecting, whatever the configuration I'm expecting to be built and deploy along with the database will be made available into the system. So in case majority of the enterprises point of view, when you have applications to be up and running on premise, then definitely the database availability or clustering and all that stuff, it is something the infrastructure job. But sometimes it may be difficult to manage in terms of high availability resiliency business use case. If I wanted to take care of business continuity point of view, it will be challenging. So here in Azure you will get that as in past configuration. So the underneath environment, what is expected is something you can take care of it. So the availability and other stuff will be designed in a way so that it will allow you to access your particular services effectively in terms of environment, right? Now, the important factor over here is that when we have a database application to be up and running, so connecting your database securely. So definitely there are a couple of security elements are made available. So if I'm planning to access my database engine, then let's say I have like connected with my Azure subscription, and inside this, I just need to connect and access my resource group. Okay, I'll just show you. So in this case, I have my PostgreSQL, and which application stack going to connect with this particular database. So whatever the connection string, whatever the data mapping, or in case of any connectivity with the database as in server name or any particular endpoint, what you are expecting to your services, all that particular configurations you can do it from here, right? So for example, if I'm looking for connection security, so right now this is my like virtual machine IP added for my development purpose, because this is something going to connect and access. If I'm going ahead with my web application, that this web app is also going to connect and access the database and all that. So you may get those details, like you may have some property available which will be helpful to you in terms of capturing your web app properties and connectivity related informations and all that stuff, right? So you may have your particular standard IP which you can attach to your particular database engine as well. So ultimate goal over here is that you can connect securely with your particular database, and it will give you certain type of standard you can say the connectivity point of view, that who all are getting access of your particular database and all that, right? So here I can say web app con and just say save. So in general, of course, I mean, we do have connection strings and other stuff will be added into our application, but it's just that safer side. If I am planning to access my particular environment, then it will be helpful to me and allowing me to connect with that specific instances, right? So in general, when you are planning to build and host your particular environment, so you do have a specific a user interface where you can connect with your particular database. You can make sure the what is the performance metrics you are expecting, what kind of service tier and pricing tier you wanted to attach to this particular database, authentication mechanisms, and many other stuff you can take care of it. Now the advantage over here is that it will be a kind of fully managed platform. So it will be a one-stop solution where you can simply go ahead and manage the environment the way it is expected, right? So from the backend, you can have a secure connectivity extended. And when you have a app service environment to be created, so definitely in this particular case, you may define that the scalability and other stuff if you are looking at it, right? So maybe I can say, okay, minimum 2 instance or minimum 3 instance to be available of my web app. So when the scalability I'm looking for it, because initially you might be running with a single instance of app service, but from the scalability point of view, you can add more number of instances and you can auto scale whenever the traffic goes high, all that particular rules and components what you can figure it out with this. So ultimate goal over here is that to provide you a kind of fully managed platform where you can build and deploy your instances with the help of these frameworks, right? Now, ultimately, of course, I mean, you have to have some background of understanding of how the entire the framework works from the Django point of view, because end of the day your application supposed to be developed with the component of that particular framework, right? So you need to create your path view, you need to create a particular application structure, your folder structures and everything you may follow, and you can build your entire solution on top of it. So ultimate goal over here is that to provide you a kind of open source technology stack where you can build your effective solution on top of it, and you can host the environment along with this particular feature, right? Now, a couple of important component when you are going ahead with developing your solution. Okay, so of course, right now I'm not making more complex thing, because right now it is just that simple application to be developed and connecting to my particular database services. Otherwise, like if you imagine that in your enterprise grade, you may have a particular Azure storage services in place, right? You may think that, okay, I will be having a particular storage which allows me to upload. Let's assume that if you have an e-commerce application, then you may have a storage service to upload your particular photographs of your particular products, right? You may have a particular CDN service mapped along with it, and that will basically cache your particular product photographs, and end of the day whatever the web app URL has of those particular photographs and all will get mapped to your particular CDN content and will access those particular information. You may have some additional feature in terms of monitoring point of view, so you may end up configuring your app inside, right? So I'm just like trying to add some additional components, so you may not feel that, okay, oh, these are the only two components we require to build app. But yeah, you can have application inside, you can have particular the other component. Let's say for example, maybe if it is a order processing and also I'll go ahead with some additional component like serverless component. I can go ahead with some sort of adding additional service in terms of application gateway, so that if in case any URL based routing I'm expecting with my application, I can do so. So of course, I mean, from the business point of view or the enterprise scenario point of view, if I'm considering, there are many more components can be accommodated in your overall solution, right? But right now, of course, I mean, the focus is that how this Django and the PostgreSQL you can plan and you can create and configure the environment. So it's more focus on that part. So we will talk about that. And on top of it, the environment we are expecting to be developed and all, right, so is something we'll go ahead with Visual Studio Code. So as I mentioned that initially you need a couple of elements to be configured. So simple example, when we are getting started with our particular project and all, so you have a particular Git repo available with Microsoft Learn. So I can recommend that you guys should take a look at it. And there are some particular project folder structures are given to you, right? So that will be helpful. I mean, of course, when you get started, you will be going through with step-by-step component learning and all that. But at certain stage of this entire learning path, you will be developing that entire solution out of the box, right? So in this specific unit, the background which is expected that you should have some particular understanding of the previous modules of what is Django, how the Python framework based component you need to install and all that stuff. So this is basically a kind of option you need to follow along with it, and you have some particular sample projects and code available. So if in case you wanted to build anything as such, and you want to get started from scratch, or I mean, of course, you can start from scratch, but if nothing, and you wanted to begin with your existing project structures and all, so you will get some particular reference code and a code repo to be made available for you, right? So if in case any development component you which you are expecting to go ahead with it, it's something available in this particular case, right? So yeah, I think from the learning curve point of view, definitely you will go through with the Django learning. with basic fundamental to advanced one, and you will be going through with PostgreSQL to be created and deploy on top of it. Now, from the project configuration, so what all the elements I have done or what all the components I have followed. So I'll just like take you through once and at least give you a little bit background of project related folder structures and all that, right? Now, usually when you are planning to work with your local project, definitely you will get started with some making your local project directories and set up the environment and configure the folder structures and all that. So you will get standard files and folders inside this, right? So there will be a manage.py. So this basically it's your root folder, which or root file, which will be enabling your runtime environment where local servers or local environment which is expected for your environment to be up and running is something you can configure with it. There are some particular standard files, extensions are available like your project name, whatever you have created. So that's your default project package where you will get all the required file sets to be made available, right? The most important component is your requirements.txt. So this file is your particular environment and whatever the dependency what you are expecting in your application is something you will be configuring with that, right? So here if you see like couple of dependencies which I have configured, right? So it's kind of certain deployment libraries, certain development libraries. I just wanted to configure locally. So some standard environment settings you will be defining on top of it and install them or configure them out of the box. Other than that, there are some predefined configuration files are given to you. Say for example, ASGI py. So this file is or WSGI file, anything. I mean, you can consider this one or this one. So these files are basically it's an entry point for your web servers when it depends like what kind of server you deploy and all that. So this is basically for your entry point for your server to connect and access your particular application stacks and all that. You will be having URL spy. So this particular file basically contain your project URLs, that how the redirections and what all the pages and other stuff you are planning to work with it. You will have settings.py. So this is more about all your settings for your application configurations and other stuff will be made available. And on top of it, we will be creating this additional azure.py. So in this particular file, what is expected, because end of the day this entire application and database is going to be deployed as in PaaS services. So the configuration or I can say to be more precise, the mapping of my data or my services, what I'm expecting is we will have a particular database configuration plus along with that the application deployment configuration. So definitely, I mean, we'll have our common variables and parameters to be defined. So of course, I mean, as soon as you get familiar with the syntaxes and all, it may be kind of self-explanatory that what all the dependency we have mapped over here, what all the database mapping what we are expecting, and integrating my local web app to access my database at the end. So right now the azure.py, this specific service gonna helpful to you in terms of connecting and configuring your overall environment towards your deployment processes and all. Now generally these particular like what do you say the folder structure. So definitely you have to have project folder, and inside that you can have application folders, and then you can have your view, you can have your particular environment. All that structure you will be going through and you can create, right? And of course, I mean, the environment one is something holding your particular all the dependencies and libraries, which is something expected. So combining this, definitely we are good where we have some ready to use environment available, and at the same time we are using SQLite, a kind of local database. So if I'm planning to debug and test my application locally, then I'll be able to validate, I can at least make an entry, or I can view my some particular local data coming from this. So ultimate goal over here is that you will be having your a local runtime environment for developing and testing your apps locally. And last but not least, you will be going ahead with deploying this particular application, right? So simplest way is that here you will be creating a particular new web app. So two extensions we need. One is for our web app to be deployed, and second is for our particular database environment, right? So for example, if I am like willing to host my web application on a particular pricing tier, then definitely all that configurations and settings you can go through from this particular Visual Studio Code itself. So no need to connect to your portal again and again, because here you will get a kind of properties and configurations for your app services, which makes your deployment smoother experience from this particular template itself. Now, it may be possible that if you are planning to go ahead with your code repositories and other stuff to be managed and deploy and all, then definitely you have that scope as well. I mean, you can enable certain tool chain in this, and when you commit your final code, the next step is to provide you access to that particular service and connect and access the environment, right? So here I'll just create a sample app for demo. So here I can say sample Django app. Maybe if it is showing me no error, that means this is the unique name. You need to select the framework on top of which you are planning to build your application. So as I said that there are multiple development frameworks you can follow along with it. So they could be .NET, Java, Node, or even Python. So you will see all that listed frameworks to be made available for you, right? So accordingly, you can plan your development path. So I'll say Python 3.9. And what is the app service plan? Now this is something required, because end of the day, when your application is going to be built and deployed, so which framework sorry, which pricing tier you are planning to go ahead and deploy it. So it will be free, basic, standard, premium, or if you are willing to select any other particular pricing tier which is something explicit, then you can select that. So right now, let's say I'll go ahead with either free or basic one. So free maybe if you want to SSH and I mean, SLA is not associated with this. Though you have 10 web app freely available, which you can develop and deploy and all. But right now, if you're assuming that you're going ahead with any dev stage and prod environment kind of development, then testing them with your from free to at least minimum basic will make more sense, and you can have availability and other stuff to be associated with that. So as of now, I'll select basic, and it will start provisioning. Now, right now, the apps are getting deployed into the same environment, same region and configuration. So it didn't ask me regarding which region you want to deploy, which particular resource group you want to deploy and all. But if you are following this first time, then definitely if these parameters and properties are not there, then you need to provide your region, you need to provide your particular deployment options and all that, and then you can simply go ahead with your particular web app on top of it. So your web app get created, okay, and inside that web app you have some particular standard configurations with your application settings, database, and all that stuff. So this database is your local database, in-app database, what we call it outright. So this particular database going to be made available. Now here we are not going to utilize this, because we're going to have additional PostgreSQL where we're going to establish a connection strings and other settings to be available with this database application. So to do that, there are a couple of settings available. Now, if you go to the Azure portal, so to updating these particular settings, multiple way to do so, right? So one of the ways is that either you do it via your local environment if you have all the details in place, because sometimes what happens that it may be possible that services or infrastructures are not completely deployed by developers, right? It may be possible that DevOps people automate the ARM template and deploy the infrastructures and all, and they set some basic parameters or standard parameters to the services. So it may be possible if the service is deployed by your infra team or DevOps team and all, then you need to get certain parameters, because end of the day, your application supposed to connect and access the database engine, right? So you need your database connection string, the credentials, and all that stuff, which you can pass it as an application settings parameter, so that it will be accessible in your particular application. So ultimate goal over here is to provide you a kind of you can say parameterized value, and those application variables, you can call it out as an application variable, environment variable. So those things you will be setting up in your particular app settings, and from there it will be accessible to your applications, right? So usually you can simply go ahead when add your particular settings. Say for example, db user I just wanted to provide, and maybe I have created this database already in place, so I can just give my database name, my project db, and to make sure that to give a unique name, I have just given some unique name with that. So this could be my database. Now this is something, it will become your particular connection, or maybe you can say a kind of a parameter which gets attached to your particular services back of the system. So ultimate goal is to provide all the possible parameterized value in your application settings. So as I said, that your name of the database, your connection string, the password, and any other parameter which something you feel that supposed to be mapped with your application environment, then will goes to your application settings, right? So once you have things in place, you can redeploy or probably just refresh or update in your particular systems, because sometimes it may be possible that your connection may get loose in between or interrupt or something. Then it's safer to reload or redeploy your applications, and you can have some activity to be get going. Now if all good, if services are up and running perfectly fine, or if you have your connection and network and everything is perfectly working fine, then you can SSH or you can connect with the environment from your local environment, or from your local laptop or desktops what you are using for working with the services. Now sometimes it may take time for your app services to made available. So it may be possible, potentially you might face some particular SSH issue from your local machine, right? So that could be not the all the time, but it may be possible that due to certain reasons. Now here I can consider that if you are planning to work with your web app, then from portal also the management and operation options available from this user interface, right? So for example, uh, here when the app getting deployed, so there are a couple of elements are there. So you can simply go ahead starting your application from scratch with python. If I mean, so far we have started with that. You may have deployment slots. So right now it's in basic service tier, so I'll be not be able to get the deployment slots, but if I'll be in a premium or standard version of my app service plan, then I'll be getting staging, production, and all that deployment slots to be created. And you can have a kind of swap functionality between swapping your application frameworks, or maybe you can say the newer version of application swapping from staging to production or production to staging. So the advantage over here is that it's though it's a platform as a service, it's a fully managed activity. You can go through with it, and it will give you all that particular component to be taken care, right? So ultimate goal over here is to provide you a complete management from back of the system. Of course, this is something very useful when you are planning with any CI/CD pipeline to be integrated with it, right? So probably Azure DevOps, or you can say GitHub and all that. So you may go ahead and plan your solutions on top of this activity. So yeah, I think uh, it's a quick overview of these particular component. Now right now I'm facing some issue with my deployment activity, it is not establishing connection. So a couple of variable configuration is something still pending. So I'm just like trying to fix this, and whatever the activity which we are planning to go through in this application, right? So the deployment point of view, we can have some particular diagnostic settings available. So probably if you want to monitor and keep a track of it, you can do so. So here is your particular element. So in terms of application, you want to see that what is breaking, if any configuration is not thoroughly working, what is missing inside that. So all that stuff you can have it in place. Even you can add your own custom diagnostic settings as well, that I wanted like my log of all the particular properties for my application, I can do that. So probably up to you, like what kind of the monitoring related activities you wanted to see, because I have disabled a couple of elements from while deploying it. So maybe if you want remote debugging and other stuff, maybe you can do that. But usually we should avoid, because if that is something, a production website up and running, and if you face that specific error, then you will not be able to. I mean, whatever you are doing it, it will be on live site, right? So certain kind of precautions we have to take care of it. But yeah, in general, you will be enabling your particular logs and metrics, so that if in case any particular properties you wanted to take a look at it, why this application is breaking, or any specific errors to be occurred and all, probably you can monitor and manage those activity from this. Now, two important tool from the portal itself. So right now we are just trying to establish certain SSH connection from the local instance. Something similar to that you will be getting into portal with development tools. So you have advanced tools as in Kudu. So this could be a kind of web app management console or one place solution what we are considering. You have dedicated SSH. So right now we are in, you can say, we are in particular the web app environment via the Azure. So you can at least open your SSH panel, and if in case any environment variable configurations or other stuff you are planning to go ahead and all, you can do so, right? So ultimate goal over here, I mean, right now it got terminated. Somehow my web app is like not responding thoroughly. So in general, if you are SSH into your environment, this is basically a way to go. You can have your connections to be established. So it will show you that currently you are on a root folder and all that. So it is something you will get that access. So in case of any application settings or any particular additional features which you are supposed to go through with it and all, you can do it, and you have that particular options to be get going, right? So right now this is something still getting initialized. This is one place. Second is Kudu. So Kudu, or SCM, which is also known as site control management. So in this you have the multiple options. So say for example, if I wanted to SSH into my particular application via using this particular console, I can do so, right? You have like other application settings, and if you're planning to, let's say I just wanted to run the bash and have my particular activity to be tracked and all, you can do that, right? So ultimate goal over here, let me see if something I can fix. So in this particular generic environment, you will be getting a particular overall, you can say, development component and toolchain available as in overall app service environment. So you, if you are planning to build and deploy any such particular business use case, then you can go ahead and manage your overall environment on top of it. So yeah, I think I need to probably fix this particular console. It is keep throwing me error. I just like turn on that particular before session. I turn on my web app. So it looks like it is giving some error. So yeah, I need to fix that. But yeah, I think here is the way to go, where you can at least get started your journey with Django and as well as PostgreSQL, where you can build your application from scratch. Here is the complete learning path given to you, and you can have that step-by-step learning journey with this particular environment. Yeah. So yeah, I think we are uh, good. So any queries, questions so far? Maybe if you guys want, you can post in a chat as well.
The mics are enabled, so you can just unmute and just ask question if you have any questions.
Okay, so
Oh,
it looks like yeah,
we
and
don't have any questions. Yeah.
sure, yeah. So happy learning. I mean, you guys have a link in your particular chat window and as well as on slide. So this will be a good start to with Django and PostgreSQL. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jigar, for the session, and thank you all for joining us today. Thank you.